The year is 2015. We have just seen a little film called Avengers Age of Ultron, and we are here to fix it as time traveling movie producers. Cue the intro. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mirror Movie Universe podcast. Joining me today, it's not my little brother Nate. He didn't want to do this one. So instead, we have author of comics and novels and the co-host of the Brilliant But Lazy podcast, where they cover everything Marvel and nerd movies and everything in between, is my old friend and coworker, Josh. Josh, how are you?
I'm good, Dan. Brother from another mother. We met a long time ago at Nebraska Medicine. We were fellow nerds, and we were fellow debaters. We debated everything from religion to comics to movies to whatever over lunch. And
Yeah.
yeah, we were good. We were good. It was a good conversation back then.
Every single lunch we would get together and we would just whatever it was like what's the
Just
best
go at it.
Rambo, like just go for
Yep.
it. It was
hmm
so fun. And you could say like the seeds of this like was planted a long time ago with Josh. He was the very first person that I really got to nerd out with like that, which was super fun. So
Yep.
uh
Only we recorded it back then, that
I
would have
know we could, if
been
we would have
great
recorded it, we could have been like we could have had like a massive hit podcast
for sure.
10
For
years
sure.
earlier. Crazy. Is
Yep.
there anything else that you want to say in the introduction? Where can people find your books and stuff?
I'm out there. I've got a sci-fi trilogy and a graphic novel called The Fierce Saga. I've got a fantasy novel called The Halcyon Garden, and I'm working on my newest book, which is supposed to come out in October. It's called Vivid, and that's my first just straight horror novel. So Fierce Lit or fierceliterature.com. Otherwise, I've got some Comic-Con appearances coming up. I'll be at Des Moines Comic-Con with Vincent D'Onofrio and some other big names next weekend. I'll be at Lincoln Comic-Con in August and the New York Comic-Con in October. So yeah, I'm out
That's
there.
amazing. You're all over the place.
I
You're like the
try.
biggest person we've gotten on the show, which is really cool.
Okay. All right.
No pressure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, all right, so before we talk about Age of Ultron, what we like about it, and ultimately what we would like to fix about it, first we got to talk about what happens in it. So our titular heroes, the Avengers, are reunited going after the scepter from the first Avengers film. They find it in the hands of Baron von Strucker, who has used it to create two enhanced humans, not mutants, though. We can't say that word yet in 2015 because we don't have the rights to it. So we're introduced to Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch, or as they say it, he's fast and she's weird. A lot of Joss Whedon quips throughout this film. So they defeat Baron von Strucker. They have a little party, and Tony Stark decides that he is going to use the scepter to create this ultimate policing AI called Ultron. To keep the world safe and finally usher in peace. Well, of course, it goes terribly wrong. Ultron defeats Jarvis, recruits the Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver to his cause. There's a big fight between Hulk and Tony Stark in the Hulkbuster armor, which is really cool. As my brother would say, very cool. And then the Avengers are forced to flee. They go into hiding, and they wind up meeting Clint's Hawkeye's wife and children, which is it's just a really sweet little scene in the middle of this, and they go to his farm and everything. Anyway, it all ends with this big confrontation. The Scarlet Witch realizes that Ultron is wrong and switches sides to join the Avengers. This big confrontation in Sokovia when Ultron is trying to destroy the world. I think that it goes without saying that the Avengers win, although it does come at a cost. Quicksilver dies saving Hawkeye by stopping quickly, and then all the bullets hit him instead of Hawkeye. And then at the very end, we see the Avengers almost assemble with a new team of Avengers And that's pretty much it in a nutshell. The Age of Ultron. Did I leave anything big out there, Josh?
No, I think you covered it well. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you.
Definitely the beginning seeds of the Infinity Stones, with Thor's walkabout in the pond of sight or the water of mind or whatever it was
Oh, that's
called. But
right. They have some weird visions.
mm-hmm.
Black Widow has a weird vision of the Red Room. Yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
Vision, speaking of visions, is created
Right.
out of the
Right.
the body that Ultron creates for himself, and they use the Mind Stone to create Vision, who then ultimately defeats Ultron. So there you go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. A lot going on in this movie for sure.
Yes, there is. Josh, what do you like? What do you love about Age of Ultron?
So I wanted it to be fresh. I rewatched this today. I watched it in 4K on my TV, and it still holds up. This movie is beautiful. So I will give it that. It looks great. I do remember there was a lot of critical response to this movie when it came out from the fans, but in hindsight, and based where we are now with the MCU, it holds up. I think this movie is better than it was back than we thought it was back then. I think for the most part, there's a lot of good stuff in it. I noticed a lot of small things that I appreciated. Small things like Hawkeye has an answer to running out of arrows. In the Avengers movie, he had the little thing on his back with arrows, and he eventually ran out. And this thing, he has like collapsible things that fit in his hand that make like 50 arrows. So those were smart things. I liked that. While the end is a little convoluted for Ultron's plan to destroy the world, it's not nukes, which would have just been Terminator, and it's not a laser in the sky, which is every other movie. So
Yes. It's
I
not a
will give,
giant sky beam.
right, I will give them that. Um, and there's some other things too, but there's worse movies in the MCU than this for
Yeah.
sure. And having not watched this in a very long time, I did appreciate it more than I remembered. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it does hold up beautifully. The effects are great. I think that we take for granted now how amazing it was to have all of these heroes on screen together. Because,
Hmm.
now that we've done Civil War, we've done all these movies where there's the crossovers and team ups and everything else. But here, it didn't really happen. Like we had the Avengers where they all came together, and it's so great to see that camaraderie right from the get-go, from that first fight when they're taking down the Hydra base and they're all quipping at each other. A lot of quipping in this movie.
Hmm.
And like the interplay between characters is fantastic. It's such a joy to see them together, and you don't really see that in the other Avengers movies. In Endgame and stuff, it's much more somber, and I'm not
Hmm.
saying it's like less entertaining, but you don't get a lot of that fun camaraderie here. I love that we get more of Hawkeye. I love the little scene in the middle where they meet his family. And it's funny because earlier in the film, he makes some comment like, I don't have a girlfriend. And he doesn't. He has a wife. Hawkeye. I think Linda Cardellini is great as that. And it's nice because again, in the first Avengers movie, he didn't do much except be brainwashed. So it's nice to see him get a little bit more to do there. And
Hmm.
I think that we pointed this out probably a decade ago when we were eating lunch that they go out of their way at the ending battle to save civilians,
Yeah.
which they don't do in some DC movies that came out around that time. And like they really go out of their way to like save as many people as they can in Sokovia. It's a
Yeah.
very deliberate choice to be like, we are different.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, they did that throughout the film. They did that with the Hulk Iron Man battle. Before he destroys that building, he not only buys it but also verifies that there's no civilians. I mean, it's the cleanest demolition building ever. That might have been less realistic, but I'm trying to think what year Man of Steel came out. Typing it in right now. That came out in 2013. So yes, they had 2 years and some change with making that film and this film, and I'm sure there was something that said, "Hey, if we're gonna have destruction, we need to go out of our way to show that we're saving human lives." And to their credit, they absolutely did.
Yeah, they did. I think that you can say what you will about Ultron. I think it's kind of a cliched plot, but they do it well here. The AI that wants to destroy the world. And my last thing that I love about it, though, is the introduction of the Scarlet Witch. I think that she's a really compelling character in the MCU. I love everything that she's done afterward, and it's really cool to see her and Quicksilver. And I love that he stays dead, which is probably weird to say, but like a lot of people come back in Marvel stuff. And
Mhm.
to their credit, like even Vision has come back now or whatever. Like Quicksilver has always like just stayed dead, which is really great because it cheapens death when you resurrect characters so much.
Sure. Well,
So
I think they needed to with his power set. It just it I have gripes with how he died, but I get why they killed him. Um, but yeah, the twins were great. James Spader as Ultron is Ultron. I think he is fantastic. I think that persona of his is overdone
mhm,
now. We're long gone from the days of nerdy Spader in Stargate. Now he's Ultron all the time in every role. If it's the
mhm.
Blacklist, if it's this, if it's whatever. So, but he's fantastic as Ultron, and then saving Paul Bettany and transforming him into Vision instead
Yeah,
of just losing him from the universe when they moved on um,
from
uh,
Jarvis to
Jarvis. Yeah, that was a great choice, and he's great for the role. And so both of those were very strong choices that impacted the MCU going forward for sure.
yeah. So a lot to like here, and I think when it came out, we both kind of lamented that it wasn't as good as we thought it would be, and there are certainly some things to fix. So if you were a movie producer at Disney, I guess they own Marvel now in 2015, and you had seen a rough cut of this film that looks exactly like what you saw earlier today in 4K on your television, what what fix would you make to make Age of Ultron better?
Well, I don't want to go into nitpicks, but I do have a lot of smaller things. But I think one of the bigger themes that I noticed was Bruce really lost his confidence from the first film into this film. I didn't like how weak-minded or scared of himself he was in this film. They definitely did change him in Avengers from the Hulk movie that they, with American History X,
Ed
Ed
Norton.
Norton.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, by the end of that film, Ed Norton's Hulk was very confident. He was smiling as he was transforming, hinting that he had gotten under control. He's not that arrogant in the Avengers, but he is confident in himself. And at the end, he does transform on his own. And he said that the trick of it is he's always
He's
angry.
always angry. Yeah, it's a great line.
Right. Right. And he gets out of control in both films, but both films he's kind of tricked into getting out of control. In the first film, everybody's kind of being too close to the scepter and they're getting a little mind control, and so he's a little affected by that, and then an explosion and he hulks out and goes crazy. And in this film, the Scarlet Witch screws with his mind and he goes crazy. But other than that, he is in control. And so I was annoyed that 2/3 of this movie, he was very unsure of himself and very kind of scared. Like they had definitely like toned down his confidence. And he's just as smart, if not smarter, than everybody else in the room. And I didn't like his weakness. I thought
Mhm.
that was just they just chose to do that. He could be a nerd and be confident and not, be like arrogant, but I thought that they toned him down too much in this film for some reason.
Do you think that that's just how Ruffalo like chose to play him?
No, I mean I do feel like it was a writing choice.
Hmm.
But I mean they do kind of correct that later on. But in the later movies,
Yeah,
but
you've got
I just
Professor Hulk and stuff. Yeah.
right. I just noticed a major tonal shift between his confidence levels in this movie and the last. So yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting too because they have that whole subplot where Scarlet Witch has to like calm him down and get him out of his Hulk mode, and then at the
Hmm.
end of it, he's so freaked out that he just flies off in the Quinjet. He's like, I can't be around people, and there's not much to say why. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm okay if a character goes through some transformations, but you have to tell me why. Like, what changed from the first Avengers, where he's always angry and he's in control, to this being like so scared of himself and not knowing what to do, and like I agree with you there. Like there has to be more why. So even if you can
Well,
give me a scene of
I
why he's scared.
I think the why is because they were planting a lot of seeds in this movie. I
Yeah.
think, whether they knew the whole thing of Thor Ragnarok and the future of Banner's Hulk at this point, I don't know how much they had in the works, but they were planting the seeds for that. They were planting the seeds for the Infinity Stones. They were planting the seeds for so many things. Some of them were clever, like just a small nod to
Mhm.
the existence of Wakanda, and this was 2 years and like five movies before Black Panther. But
Yeah.
those type of things were just in and out. But there was a lot of other major seed planting that could have either been placed at the end of the movie or not in it at all. And I think that's probably part of that because they had this plan for the Hulk and it didn't really make sense for the character, but I guess when you look forward, it makes sense
Yeah.
or you see why they did it for that reason.
Yeah, so maybe what they needed to do here is just to add a scene where he's talking with Scarlett Johansson, Ruffalo and Scarlett Johansson, and he says something like, she's like, I thought that it was going well. You were in control like last time. And he's like, no, it's getting worse. I don't know what's happening, blah, blah,
Mm-hmm.
blah. Like something to show why he's lost that confidence. And yeah, because it's before Scarlet Witch messes with his mind. So that's not it. Like there has to be another reason for him to be freaked out.
Mm-hmm.
I would buy that totally. Yeah, like give me something to explain that character and motivation a little bit more. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. A couple other things, and I won't list them all because I want to hear some of yours as well. I mean, small things like Jarvis is already an amazing AI. The way they kind of talked about how Ultron would be the answer to all things, I
Mm-hmm.
don't see why Jarvis wasn't, and he kind of was at the end anyway. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Ultron wasn't an AI; he was alien. So I really don't understand why Tony was so ready to just implement alien technology into his own works because it wasn't just AI. It was intelligent, but it was alien more than it was just an evolution of our technology. And Jarvis was already able to do everything, so if you really wanted a suit of armor, I don't understand why Jarvis wasn't enough, and especially with what they did with Vision, it just wasn't clear enough why Jarvis wasn't the answer all along. Sure, Vision isn't all Jarvis; he's part Ultron, but I think they could have done a better way of showing that this isn't just a technology. This is alien. This is something outer worldly, and I think that just makes me more irritated that Tony was just so nonchalant about implementing it into all of his tech
Mm-hmm.
when it's not of this earth. And if anybody was had firsthand encounters with alien tech from outer space, it was definitely him
Right.
with what he went through in the Avengers.
Yeah. That makes a ton of sense to me. It is weird. Like, why not just use that tech to upgrade Jarv? Like he does. He creates something brand new, totally brand new with Ultron, who winds up like destroying Jarvis, but it doesn't, I guess, because he's Vision. Yeah, that does get really kind of convoluted there for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I mean, I got other nitpicks, but the only other major thing is I don't understand why Hawkeye brought the Avengers to his home. Hawkeye might be one of the least powered persons on the team, but he's very smart. He
Yes.
knows spycraft. He knows how to keep secrets. He knows how to keep his friends safe. And you see that when people are, when Dr. Cho, who was in the film purely for Chinese audiences,
Audiences, yeah.
but Dr. Chow has the thing about your girlfriend, and he says, I don't have a girlfriend. And then, like you said, and then later Cap asks who he's talking to on the phone, and he says it's his girlfriend. He does all this work to protect his family, but then when the world is at stake, he brings all the targets of the bad guy to his home to
Right.
hang out with his family. And I don't understand why. I loved seeing his family. I
Yeah.
think that's a great dynamic for him,
Yeah.
especially with how it affects him in the future. And again, I feel like that was setting up something for his future that we later find out in Endgame and Infinity War. But I don't see the reasoning why he would put his entire family in danger by taking all of the number one targets of the bad guy and bringing them home for dinner.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I mean, they try to explain it away by saying like Fury is the only one who knows. It's not in any files, it's not in any computer system, so there's no way for an AI to know. But there's other ways that Ultron could track them, surely, or look for their, alien whatever, to follow them there. So I totally get you. Like it's not a very calculated move. I love what it does. I love that it
Sure.
shows a glimpse into him and gives us a little more backstory. Like that's really cool, and it's super cute when his kid, I forget if it's his son or his daughter, runs up to Scarlet Witch and is like, Aunt Nat. Like that's a really
Yeah.
sweet moment too. I love
Yeah.
what happens, but I agree, like it doesn't quite make sense when you think about it a little too hard.
Yeah, especially when Winter Soldier showed us that there's technology that uses our satellites to pinpoint
Right.
anybody's facial recognition. So while his family might not be on the web, taking all of the most popular superheroes and putting them in one spot kind of tempts facial recognition to find them. So yeah, I didn't really think that was a good choice, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
What are some of your fixes?
So my I have a big one and then I have one that I don't think can be addressed here, but I don't know where to address it. And that's
Mm,
just at the end of the film, I love the new Avengers team that they introduce.
mm,
And it's so cool to see like, okay, this is the Avengers. Because before they were like trying to find excuses to bring everybody together. Okay, there's a big invasion in New York, get everybody together. Oh, now we're going after the scepter, bring everybody together. And here they're like, oh, this is the team. We're gonna set up that this is the team. Captain America is leading it. This is everybody, and he's got that Avengers up, and then it cuts away. I wanted to see more of that team. I get that this is not the place for that. I get that it's setting it up for somewhere else, but you never really see that team. And I think it'd be such a cool dynamic, like to see them together. And we've had, so many shows on Disney Plus. We've had all these other movies that have come out, and nobody has ever explored like that specific team. Even when it's time for Civil War, you don't spend a lot of time with that Avengers team, with Falcon and War Machine and Scarlet Witch and Captain America. And so I just want to see like I want to see more of that. I know that there's no room for it here. I just think that it would be fun. So,
yeah. Well, yeah. In Avengers 2.5, you get the opening scene with them, doing their mission. But then, yeah, then it's straight into the Civil War stuff. So, yeah, you don't get a lot of them. I do like that they have that training facility and everything at the end. I was a little annoyed with Iron Man going away again because
yeah,
we just saw him retire at the end of Iron Man 3, which is not mentioned at all in this film. Like
right.
he's got all of his suits and more in this film for some reason. But I get it because they were setting up Civil War. They needed to put more seeds into that divide. Um, but yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't think they needed to have a mission tacked on to the end of this film, but I
Right.
did like that. Hey, here's the new team. Let's get a little bit more of them. But I'm not sure that an Avengers 3 with that team would have survived, honestly. So
Yeah, I wish, and they hadn't been doing shows on Disney Plus. I don't think Disney Plus existed at that point,
no,
but it would have been cool to see like a 6 episode miniseries with
sure,
them and explore some dynamics and give them a little fun stuff to do
sure,
before they go off and do Civil War. Like
yeah.
just something. I don't know.
Well, if they ever bring back Chris Evans and whatnot, maybe we can have some flashback scenes to that time. Maybe in the upcoming Vision series, we can get some flashback scenes to that time,
I would
you
love
know?
that. I would love
That'd be
that.
cool. Yeah.
So my biggest fix, do you remember when this trailer first came out, right? And we were so excited for this film. And then right at the end of it, you get that first glimpse of Ultron, right? And he said that line, he said,
There are
there
no
are no
strings on me.
strings on me. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was so cool. And it was menacing and we were just like, this is gonna be a great, great villain.
Hmm.
I don't think that Ultron is all that great, and I think that it's because there's a lot of scenery chewing. And I think that it's fine to chew some scenery as a villain and do some mustache twirling and stuff, but there is so much that goes on here. So, what I want to do as my big fix is have James Spader come back and re-record a bunch of lines. And instead of like doing these big soliloquies about destroying the world and stuff, I
Hmm.
just want him to do Disney 90s music lyrics instead and do them really menacingly. So I want him to like try to be like wooing the Scarlet Witch and to be like, I can show you the world shining, shimmering, splendid. Tell me, princess, when did you last let your heart decide a whole new world? Don't you dare close your eyes. Like that's what I want is just more of that.
Yeah.
Like um
Yeah.
or when he's like building his bodies, right? He's like, I've got gadgets and gizmos aplenty. I've got who's its and what's its galore, but who cares? No big deal. I want more.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it would just be like a fun little nod because Disney has just bought Marvel, and you take away a lot of the scenery chewing, but you still make it menacing and fun and give James Spader something to do. And yeah,
Absolutely. I feel like with today's AI technology and YouTube, you could make this your own edit. I think this could be the Dan Ariel edit, Little Mermaid edit of Age of Ultron, Age of Ariel, and just, make it happen. I would watch that.
I would watch that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be super fun. I mean, it's hard because Marvel doesn't have a lot of great villains, and yeah,
Hmm. I think I really enjoyed James Spader as Ultron. I
yeah.
love that they brought him back in What If. I loved his whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger take on that when he kills his smaller self and reveals his bigger self. Like I definitely thought he was menacing and all powerful and cool. He definitely but then he had the little Stark mannerisms and the freak out sessions with Ulysses Claw and all that stuff. Like I liked all of that. I think some of the dumber things with like the whole Sokovia thing was interesting. It wasn't I mean, it wasn't conventional, so maybe that's why it worked. But at the same time, you've got this AI technology genius thing, and it all comes down to a physical key that he needs to turn at the end. And
Right.
that didn't make a lot of sense, especially since he's the one that brought it up, and then he was trying to get to it through the Avengers. That was kind of dumb. Uh, but yeah, I really liked him as a villain, and I liked Vision having to decide that he needed to destroy Ultron in order to save life, especially that scene in the woods, their last
Oh, that's
little
so beautiful between
it's
the
a
two
good
of them.
scene.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's just well done. So, um yeah. Yeah. I thought that was great.
Yeah. All right, well, internet, this is the end of the episode. So please write down in the comments who's right and who's wrong. Do you think that the Hulk is kind of lost and his character arc doesn't make a lot of sense here? Do you think that we should have the Ariel Age of Ariel cut on YouTube? If so, make that happen. Like the video if you like it and subscribe because maybe we'll bring Josh back. That would be super fun to have you back, man. Thank you for being here. This was great.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Thanks for helping me revisit this time in the MCU. I mean, just seeing how many movies they churned out in a few years. When they mentioned Wakanda, I had to look to see how far in advance Black Panther was to this, and it was only 2 years, but it was like 5 films later. And I
Crazy.
think they're talking a lot about how they're doing too much now, and they really need to slow down. They did a lot back then, but
Yeah.
they had really good writing involved. And, I think the one thing we didn't really touch on to this was Joss Whedon and all of his Joss Whedon things. That's
Yes.
that's obviously the biggest fix I would have
Yes.
for this movie, but the MCU fixed that by moving on, and I'm glad that they did.
He
So,
really
yeah.
fell from grace. It's hard because, yeah, at the time it was so cool and he was so great. And then in hindsight, it's like, ooh, yeah, let's take some steps back.
And then he took a lot of this movie and brought it over to, I don't know if you noticed, I'm wearing the Snyder Cut
I know the
hoodie for a
internet's gonna
reason,
destroy you for that.
but I'm wearing it because Whedon took a lot of things from this movie and brought it over to Justice League, even with the, fall into face of boobs thing that he likes to do. And yeah, this was the beginning of the end for Whedon, and I'm not gonna lie, I don't miss him. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it was a different time for the MCU for sure.
Yeah. For more of everything new that Marvel is doing, Brilliant But Lazy is the podcast that Josh is on. Check it out. Doing X-Men 97, and I've seen all your stuff on the Marvels and everything else
Mhm.
that's been new that's coming out. So if you want to see that, check it out. Thank you, as always, for joining us, and we hope that this finds you well. Have a good one, everybody.